Hey, everybody. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. We're live now, and I have a special guest on the show tonight. I'm excited about this ever since I heard my guest Matt's encounter. It's one of the most terrifying encounters that I've heard ever since I heard the one that Dogman Paranormal Roundtable Cryptic Conference last year. Martin Grove's Dogman encounter was very terrifying. And some of the older shows, like I said before, that I've heard back when Vic first started Dogman Encounters Radio, were some of the most terrifying encounters I'd ever heard. Also, Max Encounter is one of those. So each one of you that's in the chat right now, I just want to thank. I'm going to greet each one of you real quick. As the ones who show up, I know a lot of people come in stuff like that, but come in late too much because it's kind of distracting, and I need to try to focus on what the guest is saying. So as they come in, moderators, I'd appreciate it if you guys would like make sure to welcome everybody in. Thank them for showing up to the show. Let everybody know when they get ready to start asking questions and stuff. I will ask for questions probably when we're at the hour and a half mark. Matt, did you have a time frame that you need to be off the show?
No.
Are you good for about 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay, so y'all, so about an hour, 15, hour, 30 minutes in the show, then I'll take questions. Make sure you put your questions in all caps because it's easier for me to notice those questions or to see them right off the top instead of like trying to scroll through. Some stuff is just comments. So y'all make sure that you let everybody know as they come in and say there. Some questions I may take depending on if it's something that's really good or poignant to bring out when he's talking about certain stuff, but I want him to be able to share this encounter in its entirety because it's extremely terrifying. It's one of those edge of your seat dogman encounters that you're definitely gonna want to hear all the details of the show. Um, so questions in all caps. Everybody that's joined in, make sure y'all like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and share this live in other groups as well. I've been put on the list right now. Facebook has put me in Facebook jail. Not Facebook jail. They've restricted me from posting in groups. So basically, when it boils down to it, when you've got good encounters and certain guests coming on the show, this is what happens. I'm gonna greet y'all real quick, and then after that, anybody else who comes in, y'all can greet them as they come in, because I won't be able to do too much as far as greeting the guests that show up. But Aussie Sue, thank you for showing up tonight. Appreciate you. Sugar Britches, thank you for showing up. Darcy Zwicky, thank you. I always appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Al Santa Riga, thank you for showing up tonight. Barb Hartman, thank you for showing up. And y'all also let people know to like to like as they come into the live tonight. Y'all are in for a treat. Y'all are in for an excellent show. Time I ever heard this encounter, I was like, wow. I'm excited to have him on the show. B. Tolbert, thank you for showing up. Brandon, Catherine Gay, thank you for showing up tonight. And I'm not gonna waste too much time, y'all. I want to make sure that I see you in Gregory Thibodeau. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. This is awesome. Y'all, like I said, any questions y'all have, if it's something that you're because I might miss some stuff like as the show is going on. And if it's really something that you think needs to be addressed or asked or whatever, then bring it up again later because I may not see it. Benjamin Abbott, thank you for showing up. And like I said, y'all make sure you also monitor the comments in the chat tonight, moderators. For new that may not know how to moderate comments, just long press a comment. If you see any comments that are rude, disrespectful, or anything like that to either me or the guest or anything like that, make sure you long press the comment. And when you do that, you will be able to remove the comment or whatever. It'll give you several different options for that. William Lynon, thank you for showing up tonight. Queen of Ossian, Queen Ossian, thank you for showing up tonight. Um, Without further ado, y'all, I'm really wanting y'all to get this because this is amazing. I'm telling y'all right now. Primal Cry, thank you for showing up. What's up, Dark Woods? Thank you for showing up too. And I'm gonna let Matt go ahead on and talk to y'all. So I'm gonna take questions later on, and I'll call for those at the appointed time. Matt, thank you for coming on the show and being a guest with us at Crypto Normal Encounters. How are you tonight?
Having me. I'm very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to have you on here. I'm excited and I'm hoping that they're going to enjoy this encounter. And they said I'm cutting out. Am I still cutting out, y'all? Let me know.
A little bit of a
Anyway, I'm really happy to have you here. Can you basically echo?
once in a while, and
All
then
right,
you
hold
cut out.
on. Hold on, let me try to adjust that real quick. Is it better now?
Yes, it seems so.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna get started. Basically, Matt, how are you? And basically, can you just basically tell us a brief bio? Who are you? How did you get into the whole Dogman field? Like, how did you believe in Dogman before you ever had your first had that sighting that you had? What year was it? Can you just kind of basically tell us who you are and what is your experience?
Yeah, well, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I was always interested from a young age in, the paranormal and things like that. I remember when I was really young seeing things about Sasquatch, and it just drew me in from a young age. Um, of course, uh, my friends always were big into horror movies and things. So werewolves were always part of the group of movies that I grew up on and the lore of that. So I never would have thought that, something that happened would have been in the realm of that. Um, what happened was in the years of 1989, 1990, and it was the summer that I had just gotten out of eighth grade. And, right before you get ready to go into high school, you get out of school. Everybody remembers you get out of school, you're ready to just enjoy the summer. Uh, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. If anybody knows anything about Youngstown, it was a very big steel mill, steel industry town back in the day. But years and years ago, decades ago, when the steel industry went kaput in America, Youngstown, Ohio was one of those cities that unfortunately was severely affected by that. There is a big steel uh, company that is still in downtown Youngstown, but what I'm getting at here is that there is a very, very large area in downtown Youngstown where there are old steel mills and dilapidated buildings, a very large, giant area. I don't even know how many square miles it encompasses, but it's just a very large place. And this was one of the types of places that my friends and I would go. Um, my group of friends and I, we would always go around. We would not just be in the neighborhood. We would go from very far parts of the town or area. And, Youngstown was a rough place when I grew up in 89, 90. It was during the time of, the gangs, Bloods and the Crips. And there was a lot of that stuff going on. And unfortunately, during that time, Youngstown, Ohio kind of garnered a name that, we weren't real proud of. Murder USA had the highest murder rate per capita out of the whole country during the time. So we would always make sure, and we were a rough group of friends, but we would always make sure when we went out and we would go places, um, we would usually, at least one of us would have something to protect us, meaning a gun. So we liked going down to the steel mills. A friend of mine who's no longer with us, unfortunately, lived right downtown across the highway from where you could enter into the steel mills downtown. So his house was like the meeting place that we would go to go down there. And we did what young boys that age would do, and we get rowdy, go down. And explore everything. Sometimes do things you shouldn't do, like break windows and just be rambunctious and stuff. We brought, weapons down there sometimes because you wouldn't know what you would run into in a place like that. Maybe a homeless person that wouldn't appreciate you showing up somewhere that they were. Primarily, the reason that we would bring guns down there was because of wild packs of dogs. And anybody that lives in cities, I'm sure you've heard of instances of these big groups of dogs that are kind of band together to help each other survive, and they're not cute, cuddly, go up and pet, little spot. They're the kind of dogs that have, attacked people and actually killed some people. I remember growing up hearing about they'd be in groups of like 6 to 8 dogs, and you definitely would want to avoid them. So that's why we would go down there. This day that we went down there, it just so happened with 3 of us had guns, not very big ones. A friend of mine had a little 25 automatic, another had a 22, and I took my dad's 38 out of his closet whenever we go down there. He thought he knew where to hide it. He hid in his old cowboy boot in his closet. I'd go in there and take it. He would have killed us if he would have known, but he never found out. We didn't shoot in anything or anybody. And all the time that we had down there, we just had it down there for protection. So that day we had them, and we went down there, and if you Google Youngstown, Ohio steel mills, you'll get a good picture of what I'm talking about. You'll get an overhead view, some air overhead views of the downtown old steel mills. There are railroads that go through there. There's a railroad that goes through there even now that if you're looking at the steel mills, and the steel mills, the old ones are on your left looking at an overhead view. On the right of it, there is a steel mill that's open even now. And what they do is they utilize these railroads to usher in materials and steel in and out. So what we had
Real
is
quick, Matt, how old were you at the time of this encounter? Let everybody know how old you were at the time.
14.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So right, getting ready to go into high school. I had just turned 14 in May. In fact, May 21st is my birthday, so it's coming up. But we went down there, and there was this one building that we specifically really liked, and we made it kind of our like home base because it was an easily defendable kind of place. One of the things that we liked about it was is the stairs going into this old building were broken away. They were completely gone. So you had to kind of hop up on the opening and roll yourself up and in. And the reason we like that is because of these dogs down there. And if they had come up, they couldn't get up where we would be. Giving you
Mm-hmm.
a picture of this building, it was 4 floors, and all of each floor, it was open at each end. So north, south, east, and west, it was like open walls. And on the first floor, what we did is, for whatever reason, someday I'm going to find out what they were and what they were made for, but they stored these big steel, kind of look like old gladiator shield kind of shapes, kind of U-shaped, where you would be inside of that U if you're thinking about what it's shaped like. And they had hundreds of these things in there. They're real heavy. So what we did is we decided, well, since these walls are all open, why don't we make walls of our own? And we took all these materials and we stacked them up at every opening. We put them up as high as we could. They were very heavy. We stacked them maybe 3 or 4 rows high, and all the way each end. And that pretty much did a great job of keeping us private in there, because we would like to be in there at night. We'd make bonfires on the first floor, and there weren't roofs. It was just straight up in this 4 floor building in the middle. And so no fire had any chance. It was a concrete building of catching anything on fire. But what we wanted to remain hidden from is there was a railroad track that, and even to this day, it's still there, that goes right past the opening of this building that we would go into. And
Mm-hmm.
if the train would be driving by and they saw a fire in there or they saw us in there, what they would do is they would call the police or security, and we would have trouble coming looking for us. And then we didn't want that kind of trouble. So we had these walls built up, hopefully keeping, ourselves hidden away. They pretty much did that job for us. Getting to the night that this encounter happened, um, we had built a really big fire. It was probably after 9 o'clock. And I recall we were just inside doing whatever, screwing around, and we started to hear a pack of these wild dogs. And there was probably 6 or 7 in a big group of them. And we heard them coming, and it drew our attention real quick because they were all really loud. It seemed like they were on a mission. And we went out to the opening to see what was going on. They ran right by us and did not give pause to look at us or anything. And right outside of the building, maybe about 5, 6 yards in front of the building, past the railroad tracks, were big, huge mounds of coke, which anybody, if you know about steel making, it's the material that's used to make steel with. It basically just kind of looks like dirt and stuff like that, but they had gigantic mounds of this stuff everywhere, and there was a huge one right in front of the building that we were in. Well, as soon as they got in front of our building and ran maybe another yard past us, they made a turn, ran up over this mound, and then down over the other side, which we couldn't see them anymore, but we could hear them. As soon as they got over the other side, within 2 seconds, we start hearing what sounds like a fight. The dogs attacking something. We thought they were attacking each other. We thought they were fighting each other. I mean, there was nothing else that we knew that was out there. And it sounded pretty rough. They were getting into each other. And probably about 3, 4 seconds after that, we start hearing something else. We start hearing another animal, but louder. Um, Also getting really into this fight. So we figured out they were attacking something else. And what happened next was we start hearing yelping, screeching of the other dogs. They were in pain. They were getting some butt whooping going on. And what happened next really shocked us and threw us. What
Real quick,
started
Matt, let everybody know that you were also saying that what y'all saw from 15, you were about 15 to 20 yards away from all this, watching all this happen. And you saw over that mound, like you couldn't see on the other side of that mound or hill, you couldn't see on the other side of it. But what you
correct.
saw was all dogs being literally thrown up into the air.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting to next. Was what started to occur was the dogs started coming up over this mound, literally, as Bettina just said, being thrown over the top of this mound, and not just a little up and over and roll. We're talking in the air, looking up in the air at them, coming down, hitting, hitting the ground. Some of them staying down. I'd say 3 or 4 got thrown over within a couple seconds. Some bleeding, others limping, getting up. The ones that could get up immediately were started running away. Others running away limping with obvious injuries and bleeding. Not long after that, the rest of the pack came over the hill running and took off the way that they came. We were completely shocked. We had no idea what just occurred. And what happened next was a friend of mine, as we're watching the dogs running away, wondering what happened, one of my friends says, "Guys, what is that?" And we all simultaneously look over to the mound, and what is crawled up onto this mound was quite honestly the largest, most incredible wolf-looking dog creature I've ever seen. And the reason I say dog creature is because the mass of this thing was so large. We've talked about it over the years about the size of this animal. It was so shockingly big. It was immediately noticeable that it was as every bit as big as a bear. I've seen black bears before, very large black bears, dwarfed black bears. This was every bit as big as any Kodiak grizzly bear. Looking back, quite honestly, at the size of it, the best way I could describe seeing this thing down when it crawled up on all fours on the top of this mountain was like looking at the biggest polar bear that you can envision in your mind, because polar bears have a different build than a grizzly bear. They have more of a
Yes.
slimmer type of build,
And
longer arms.
elongated.
Right, right, very long, and it was just massive. And what it did next was, some people might think it's funny, some people might laugh. We didn't laugh. What happened next was this dog creature basically was looking at the dogs running away, and it was snaring at them. And what it did was it lifted its leg, and I'm gonna be honest, everybody, it did its business. It started peeing, but it wasn't like watching your dog at home pee. It was so disturbing. What happened was it lifted and it started going. It was like somebody turned on a very strong hose and it started going. And when it hit the top of this mound of this material, pieces of this material start going up in the air, getting shot all over. You could hear the fluid, the force coming from this dog. We believe it was, I'm marking my territory. I just took care of business. You're not coming back here. You're not going to end up leaving again. And he was telling them what's what. That scared the hell out of me. Because just something that is doing something like that, showing that much force, it was just very scary to think what else this thing was capable of. And what occurred next at this moment was my one buddy started stepping backwards and he fell into that makeshift wall that I had described to you guys earlier, made of steel shaped U-shaped things we made the walls out of. And if it was not for this wall, he would have fell. But they caught him, and what happened was it caused the steel to move along the concrete. So you think of a heavy piece of steel on concrete screeching on that concrete, and it's a loud, disturbing noise. And
Absolutely.
what occurred right after that was this animal snapped its head immediately, looked right at all four of us, and we froze. And what I'll always remember to the day I die was its eyes was the first thing that we all noticed. And we talked about this experience so many times, and we all agreed on so many things to each other. You would normally think in an experience, maybe my buddy next to me saw something else that grabbed his attention first, and then we all thought the same thing. We saw the eyes, and it was like looking at like something that had a battery behind it, behind a power source, and they were a yellow amber kind of color, very bright, literally like they were powered. And they were so large, the eyes, that you could actually see the circles in the dog's eyes, and you could see where he was looking.
The pupils.
Go ahead, Bettina. Did you say something?
Are you talking about like you could see its pupils in its eyes?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, you could see its pupils in its eyes as it was looking at each. Okay.
Each circle. So you have circles in the eyes, and you could see the pupils. You could see the wider circle in the eyes of this dog looking at us, and you could actually tell which one of you it was looking at as it was scanning. And what happened next was it started to growl at us. and it was not a normal growl. This is something also that I'll take to my grave and always remember. It was such a loud growl that we felt it in our bodies. I felt it in my chest. You hear those stories people talk about now these days about Bigfoot and some of these other animals, and even just lions or tigers, these predators that are able to use infrasound to affect their
Mm-hmm.
prey, to cause muscle spasms or weakness or confusion and things like that. Well, I believe that's what this thing was doing. And I myself got weakness in my thighs and my quadriceps, into my ankles and my feet. My legs felt like they were shaking. My other two friends said they felt like, they said out loud, my one friend said, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Something's wrong. My other friend started gagging like he was going to throw up. My other buddy felt similar to me. His legs were weak. I did not feel like I'm going to throw up or pass out, but I felt like my
Mm-hmm.
legs were going to do what they wanted to do. My one buddy behind us, who had fell back into the wall, immediately turned around and made his way inside, which we then all followed. Now, we had this huge fire going. It was lit up very bright in there. And the first thing we wanted to do was to get up. And to just give you an idea of, on the outside of each room were the stairs to go up to each additional floor. Well, telling you as before, these buildings were very old and dilapidated. So some of these stairs on these staircases were broken away. On the first floor going to the second floor, there was actually 3 or 4 stairs that were gone. So all that was there was a large opening and rebar sticking out. So what we would have to do is
Mm-hmm.
we would have to jump over that space. Now, if we were to ever miss, you fall there, you're going to get hurt bad. Um, Thankfully, it didn't happen to any of us. So going up
Absolutely.
from the second was the largest group of stairs that were missing. Going up from the second to the third and the third to the fourth, there was just a couple here and there. So it wasn't anything like the first. We made our way up to the third floor. And then when you come away from the wall where the stairs were, there was a half wall. So you could walk to the middle of the room and look down to the first floor, and you had a half wall in front of you, and you could see what was going
Okay.
on. So, it had been that long since we'd been outside, and this thing was still out there. We were very nervous about it coming in and thought maybe it had left. What happened next put that quiet real quick. You heard sound of claws on concrete, and it was pretty loud, and we all knew immediately what that meant, that it was
Ooh.
crawling and it was coming in the building. And like, even now I'm getting that empty kind of butterfly nervousness. um we
Well,
knew it was
real
coming.
quick, before you go any further, Matt, like you knew it was coming in the building. Was there? So this is a dilapidated, old, abandoned building. Was there an open doorway? There was no door on it. Did it have to open a door, or did it just walk into the building and there's no door
No,
there? How did it get in?
had this, so you, like I told you at the beginning, there were no stairs to get up. You had to hop up and roll in. Well, this thing hopped up onto the outside area, same as we would have to do. And there were no doors. It was
But
just an opening, and we had these makeshift walls there. And to where we went outside or came in, we would push one of these, stacked door things out of the way a little bit and then pull it back in. Well, we didn't take the time to close it back up. We just ran inside and started running upstairs. So this thing had an open doorway to come right in, and it did. And we heard the claws, and our first instinct was to kind of
mm-mm.
drop down behind that half wall. But we were so scared about the animal, we just were froze. And I remember the first thing that always will stick in my mind is, you have been to bonfires like for football games or something, and what big fires do when somebody walks across the line of the light. It takes your body, it takes your shadow, and it increases 100-fold. So think about how big your shadow gets standing in front of a big fire, and then think animal that is the size of the biggest polar bear you've ever seen in your life. That's the only thing you have to compare its size to. So the shadow that this thing threw coming in was the first thing that came into the room. It wasn't the creature, it was its giant shadow being thrown on the wall that looked like it encompassed the whole wall. And then slowly coming into the room was this beast. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. I mean, we were probably, even though we were on the third floor, we were only probably about 20 feet from it at the most. It wasn't that far of a drop. And you could see everything about it. And the first thing I can say is it was black, jet black. The only other color variation that we remember over the years is, and we can't agree for sure if it was from the fire causing a little bit of shimmer on it, or if it was just that it did have this color, is it looked like it had white going down from the back of its head and neck all the way down to its tail. And it looked like it was white, and it kind of, like I said, shimmered from the light when it was on it. It did not have extraordinarily long hair. The hair was probably at the longest, I'd say an inch, inch and a half. But immediately, as soon as it comes in, you see the mass of this thing, and it was bulky. It was not just long and big. It had gigantic, just muscles covering its huge skeleton, and it was so intimidating seeing this come inside because just the sheer size of it just made us freeze. And you know, if you ever think of a big cat, like a tiger or a mountain lion, when they walk, how their shoulder blades behind their neck, the bones stick up when they
Yes.
walk. Well, it had that going
Yeah,
on,
like
but
you kind of walk like that with that
right,
deal going. Yeah.
very pronounced. But what was different about this was these scapulas coming up and down were covered with massive muscles that were rippling as it walked. So even just the act of it walking was just incredible, and the sight of its muscles rippling was huge. I have to backtrack, and I apologize for that. We're going back outside again after it had growled at us. After it had growled at us, there was something that occurred that caused panic mode to really set in. And what happened was, as it growled, it simultaneously went from four on down on all fours to being up on two legs. And it wasn't like a dog standing up to get a treat where they're kind of losing their balance and having trouble standing. It went from four to two legs like it was made to do it, and it did it smooth. And I'll always remember, again, the quadriceps just stood out to me, just massive, huge quadriceps, but it had legs not like a human being. It had them like a dog, like the bent like a dog, but they were covered from from head to toe in massive muscles. Its upper body, I would have to say, more comparative to a human being. I don't
Mm-hmm.
recall the ends of the fingers. I know it had big claws because you hear them on the concrete. I didn't really get to see them. My eyes never really were drawn to that part of it because it was always more or less drawn to the face, to the mouth, and to some of the other things that occur.
Yes.
Um, it had stood up on
Mm-hmm.
two legs and that was so alien. That was our whole world shifted at that moment, because something that you had never thought really existed just up and jumped out of the TV screen, off of the movie screen, into real life, feet from us, being 14-year-old babies, looking at what, in all intents and purposes, was a werewolf. And we knew that this was not right. We knew that this was strange and it was off, and we got inside. So, fast forwarding back to this thing comes into the building. Another thing that was occurring as we're looking at this creature, besides the muscles all over it, its neck was just massive, and you could see the line going down the back of the neck, separating those muscles, and just every step it took, it just screamed raw power, and looking at it, it just looked like this thing was made for one thing and one thing alone, to be just like that
Mm-hmm.
ultimate predator that was just created for one thing, and that's to destroy and to, feed and do whatnot. It had a long tail. It wasn't especially bushy. It was a little bushy. One of the other things that stood out to me always was it had on its face, when it looked at us, it had these tufts of hair that they came down almost like, kind of like, Wolverine in the movies. He has the hair that comes
Yes.
here, but it had, like, right off here, they kind of came out in almost like a spaded kind of shape off of each end of its neck, on each side, I mean. And I always remember those tufts of hair that stuck out there. What stood out to us next again was the eyes. The eyes were just glowing, like there were batteries in its head. And what you started to notice, what I noticed almost immediately, was a sound. And the sound, I realized after seeing it come into the light better, was the sound of saliva hitting concrete. But it wasn't just a little bit of stringy. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to
Real
say
quick.
something?
Yes. When the saliva was hitting the concrete, this is after it first entered the building and it's standing on the first floor at the bottom, and you and your friends are on the third floor of that building.
Yes.
Were y'all at the top looking down at this thing? Were you
Correct.
hiding behind something and looking around to see this, or were y'all
No.
standing out in the open and looking down at it?
Yeah, we were looking straight down from the third floor. We had that half concrete wall right in front of us, so it was probably coming up to just below our pecs, on our chest, and we're just looking straight down, looking at this thing.
And from
And
the third floor, y'all, even though they were on the third floor, all the way up from the third floor, they could hear the saliva dripping from this thing's mouth. Go back into that, Matt. I just wanted to share that detail
yeah, no,
there.
absolutely.
And
And
tell them how much saliva and drool was coming out of its mouth.
yeah, it wasn't just like thinking of like a Saint Bernard or something when they're drooling. There's a lot, and it's stringy and it's dripping, and that's not what was going on. What was going on was there was massive amounts of saliva pouring out of this creature's mouth. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say pouring, it was just like somebody had turned on a faucet of saliva, and it would just kept coming, and it was just super thick, long strings falling out of its mouth, dripping, and you could hear it hitting the concrete.
Mm-mm.
And the sound of this hitting the concrete, I likened it to raining, and hearing it rain and hearing it hit concrete. That's how loud it was. And that will always stick out to me, that audible noise. Besides, when it was walking, you could hear the claws hitting the concrete. It was that loud sound of concrete and claws, but this just massive amount of saliva, snap, snap, plap, plap, plap. And then all of a sudden, it snapped its head, and it looked right up at us up on the third floor. It knew exactly where we were. It didn't look around looking for us. It walked in, it kind of just looked straight up right at us. And we had to, all of us, turn white as ghosts. I'll always remember. I mean, the hairs are standing up on my neck right now. And seeing it again, those eyes glowing, seeing the pupils, seeing it look at each of us, each one of us, and its teeth, it snarled, it growled again. I did not get that sense of that infrasound again at that moment. Maybe it did, and the concrete and buffered it. I didn't get the same sense as before, but it was a very, very loud, guttural, deep growl of something I'd never heard of in my life. And its teeth were just enormous, and its face looking at us, each one of us. We knew which one of us it was looking at when it was. And as it was doing that, it stood up again on two legs. And it took
down
kind
there
of
on
like,
that bottom floor.
correct. And it
And
took
also
kind of,
let them know. I'm sorry, Matt. I just wanted to bring this up real quick because you shared so many details with me on the pre-interview. When it was standing down there, I remember you saying that it was standing there and it kind of lifted its nose up to like kind of sniff the air, and it darted its head up to that third floor and looked directly at you guys.
yes, thank you for reminding me of that. And that's how it did do that. It smelled, you saw its nose lift up, and it smelled us and snapped its head up. And when I say it snapped, it's not just like it looked, it's a whip. It just snapped up. It knew immediately where we were. And, we don't know if it knew where we were from when we ran in from the outside, because this mound that it was standing up on and its height was so high. I'll go into how tall I thought it was, because there were things inside of the building that gave us cues on that. But it was so large and so tall and standing at the top of that mound outside that some of the firelight was hitting it. So when we ran in, there was a very good chance that when we ran up the stairs, it watched us run up those stairs the whole time. It could have, it might not have. But he sure knew where we were when it's in the air. And it growled at us. And then what happened was it looked away, and it looked over towards the wall, and my heart sunk, because I immediately knew what it was looking at, and it was looking at the stairs. And, this thing transitioned again from 2 to 4 feet, and going down to 4 feet again was so easy for it, was so natural for it. I've told Bettina this many times. The best animal I can compare it to is like a puma or like a black panther. Of when you see them in trees, or you see how they jump down, everything is so easy for them and so fluid, and it's just like nothing for them. Well, that's how this thing moved. It moved like it was made of oil or something. It just moved around so easily, and quite honestly beautifully for how large it was. It wasn't a big lump, you know, grizzly bear. This was sleek, gigantic, just fast, beautifully moving creature of, I mean, pure destruction, in my opinion. It looked at the stairs, transitioned down to 4, ran over, and we all went, "Oh God, oh God." We started panicking then, because what occurred is it hit the stairs, it started running up the stairs, came to that point in those stairs going up from the first to the second floor, where you have that
Yes.
separate 4 stairs. It jumped over those with such ease that it might as well have been an inch. It made no difference to it. It just went right over it, like the stairs were still there. And some of my friends were panicking, and one of my buddies, and I have to go back again. I forgot to mention this. When it started coming in the building before, my one friend who had said he felt like he would pass out, he was the one that fell back into the things that let it know we were there, started freaking out when we saw it. And he started kind of getting really loud. So we wanted him to quiet. We didn't want him to give our position away. So we're trying to tell him, shut up, shut up. You've got to stop. It's going to know where we are. He wasn't. He was starting to. So I feel bad looking back on it. But I didn't feel bad at the moment. And I grabbed him. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 250. And I was big guy back then, a kid, 14, but still big. And I grabbed him and I muffled his mouth, and I actually grabbed him so hard, I picked him up off the floor. His feet were dangling, and he actually started to lose consciousness. I think he almost passed out. And we finally got him to the point where we, slowly let my hand open and he could breathe. Are you going to be quiet? Yeah. So he's the one who again starts to panic extremely bad. We all are panicking, but we didn't really have many ways out of this situation now, because there was the main route, the stairs to get down, which it was coming up.
Yes.
And then there was another way outside of the building, but it was a caveat. And what was bad about it was there was a old fire escape on the outside of this building, but going from the second to the first floor, the fire escape was broken away, and it had fallen, and it was just a big pile of crumpled metal on the ground. So you couldn't get down. You could go up the fire escape on the outside of the building to the roof at the top of a 4th floor, which took you to a place where you had absolutely no way to get away at all. So we were stuck in a position of, what do we do? Where do we go? We're all panicking again. 14-year-old boys, we were babies. We didn't know what we were going to do. I truly started to get the sense of my life was coming to an end. I believed that this thing was coming to kill us. Again, talking about the saliva that was pouring out of its mouth. The only explanation for me and my friends, the reason it was salivating so much, was because it was thinking, I'm about to eat. I'm about to kill. And, you think of human beings. You see a good steak in front of you, you start salivating. And that's what I believe it was doing. It was getting ready to throw down. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And I got the sense of that this thing is going to come up these stairs, and it's going to maul us all to death, and it's going to do it one at a time, and we're going to watch it happen, and we're all going to meet our maker this day. And I truly believed I was about to die. And two of my buddies started to head outside to the fire escape to run up, because you had just have this pure feeling of, yeah, I have to get away. And it was just so horrifying. And it made its way from the first to the second, and was starting up on the stairway from the second to the third floor, which would bring it to where we were. And what happened next was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my life up to that point. And that was the sound of a train. One of the trains that carried this material that would usher in and out of the building at this other steel mill next door. It, like I said at the beginning of this explanation, the railroad tracks went immediately in front and by this building we were in. And that's why we built that wall, to hide the fires from these people on this train. Well, we heard this train, and it was coming. And it started coming, and it got to in front of our building. And I believe, we all believe, that they for sure this day saw the fire, because we had a big one going. And they had never drove by ever when we'd had fires before and yanked on the horn. Well, they yanked on it, and they yanked on it the whole way past the building, which told us that they saw it. And they were going a little slower than usual. So they were going, and as they did that, we're screaming, help us, help us. Oh my God, please, somebody help, crying and screaming, begging. Yes.
So at this time, y'all are up on top of the roof of this
No.
building, right?
Two of my buddies were at the doorway getting ready to go to the fire escape. Me and another friend were still just standing on the third floor looking. It was at this point, the way I was looking, it would be to my left, looking down at it coming up from the second uh, floor up the flight of stairs up to the third, which would have brought it right out in front of me. So if I wouldn't have gone out to the fire escape, it would have cut me off from getting outside to the fire escape. So that's the way these stairs came. So two of my
How do
buddies
you
were
think
ready.
that? How do you think that conductor? Do you think that's the train conductor? Do you think that he could see y'all through some of these broken
I just
windows or stuff, or do you think it had nothing to do with that?
No, I think he just saw the light from the fire. I don't think he saw anything going on in there. I think that we had too many of these things built up as walls, that he didn't get to really see anything per se. He might have driven by and saw something real quick. I don't know. I just think that they saw the light, saw the fire, and that they let on the horn, and they were probably calling somebody to say, hey, there's a fire in this building, I don't know what's going on. But as they're going by, we're screaming at the top of our lungs, help us. We're crying as we're screaming, somebody help us, please, begging God help us. And this thing, as they're laying on the horn, and then you know how the noises of the wheels on the tracks are cocoon, 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 that noise making super
Yes.
loud caused this thing to stop on that stairs. It was in the middle from the second to the third, very close to where we were. I would say maybe 7 feet from us. And it stopped and it looked to the open, and it turned around, ran down and out of the building within 2-3 seconds. Again, went down, and it just fluid, like it was made of fluid, just so, I mean, it almost beautifully, just beautiful the way it moved. Again, because of the mass of this thing, you just could never imagine how big it was. And you can't imagine something that big being able to move like that, but it did. And it ran out, and we kept screaming, and we thought we're safe. We weren't safe because it kept going. It stopped yanking on the horn, and we thought because it was going slower that it was going to stop. It kept going, so it kept getting farther and farther and farther, and finally we couldn't hear it anymore. And that feeling of we're saved went back into panic mode. And we started thinking, oh my God, they didn't see us. They didn't hear us. They're not coming back. Where is it? It's going to, and, you know, speaking of being inside of a big building like this, as big as it is, you can imagine the echo. So you have a giant fire burning, wood popping, sounding similar sometimes to maybe claws on concrete, thinking every sound you hear is this thing coming back in to get us. And we were horrified. And my one friend was just completely catatonic. He wasn't talking or speaking. He was frozen. Um, my other friend was crying. Me and my other buddy were we were just horrified and thinking, what are we going to do? It's going to come back and kill us. So I would say maybe 45 minutes to an hour went by, and it still had not come back in, thank God. And we made our ways down reluctantly from the third floor to the second floor because we started talking. We started saying, guys, we've got to go. We have to leave. The longer we stay here, the more chances of this thing is going to come back and get us. So at that moment, we all instantly start to remember, holy shit, we have guns on us. We get our guns out, we
Mm-hmm.
wrap, take safeties off, they're cocked and ready to shoot. Going to be honest with you, first and foremost, we never once thought of our guns when we saw this thing. If we would have thought of our guns and shot at it, first of all, who knows if we could have even hit it, as scared as we were. Secondly, I truly believe 100% neither of our guns would have worked, not for sure, not the 22 and the 25. And I don't think my 38, that was my dad's 38, would have even stunned it. I think it would have made it angry. I think it would have mauled us and made us pay for angering and hurting it. I don't think it would have stopped it or scared it at one bit at all, because those guns wouldn't kill a grizzly bear. They wouldn't kill a polar bear. They would not have killed this. This thing would maul both of those animals, guaranteed. And we felt, though, somewhat better having that knowledge that we had something to protect ourselves with. We made our way down to the second floor,
Mm-hmm.
and we were there for probably another 35, 45 minutes. And then we got enough courage to make our way down to the first floor, and we started to head out. And my one friend, I had explained to you, was basically catatonic. We had to basically drag him down the stairs the whole way. He was fighting us. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Like a horrified child. With all, I
Yes.
mean, shouldn't be anybody saying something's wrong with that. I mean, we were horrified, but we had to pull him, and he was gone. He was out. He was
Mm-hmm.
ready to in a psych ward, and he started panicking and screaming and crying and saying, "I'm not going out there. It's out there. It's going to kill us. It knows we're here. It's waiting for us." And another thing that was out there, where there were no stairs to get in or out of this, when you'd look getting up to get into the building, there was a space underneath. So it was big enough that if it wanted to, it could have been underneath waiting for us just to come over, and it could have been right there. We had that fear in our head of, is it under there in that space waiting for?
Mm-mm.
So finally we got real forceful with him. And I told him, I looked at him straight in the face, and I grabbed him and I kind of smacked him in his face. And I said, "You're going to listen to me. You're either going to come with us, or you're going to stay here and die. So you make up your choice now, or you come with us. We'll try and make it out of here, or you will die alone." And he started crying, and he came, and the way pulling on my shirt like a little kid scared, at going on a roller coaster, holding on to my shirt. We also had
Absolutely.
a we also had a very long walk ahead of us. From getting from my friend's house to this building was about 35, 40 minutes. So we had a horrifying walk ahead of us. And let me tell you something, that was the worst walk I have ever had in my life, because every noise, every cricket, every piece of gravel we walked on or kicked with our foot, every noise, we thought it was this thing. We thought we were going to turn around and it's going to be right there. It's going to be on us. So we were in the utmost most horrified state for half an hour, 45 minutes, getting back to my buddy's house. And there was a point once we got closer to my buddy's house where you were maybe 10 minutes, maybe 7, if you got quick at it, away, where you got to a point where you had to basically crawl your way up out of this area. And it was probably 100 feet of a incline like this of just gravel and dirt. So going down is very easy. Coming up, you had to get down on all fours, and you had to use all of your hands and feet to get up. And what would occur frequently fun of each other. We would laugh when it would happen on other days. As you would get up and you'd get momentum, and all of a sudden you'd lose it under your feet. You start
Yes.
sliding back down. Well, we weren't laughing when this was happening because we're trying our hardest and going as fast as we can, while also, trying to hold our guns and we had like sweatpants and shorts
Mm-hmm.
on, and, try not to let that fall. We're trying to get up this hill and we're all sliding. Tell you something that, quite honestly, has to go down as, for me, one of the top four worst things that happened tonight in terms of scariness, because when it happened to me, it happened a few times sliding down. I thought every time it's right behind me. I'm gonna slide down and it's gonna get me. You ever think
Mm-mm.
of me when I was young in the house I grew up on, going up the stairs from the basement back upstairs? We had those old stairs that, like, there was a space behind the stairs and there was no way you could stick your hand through the stairs. So you think when you're a little kid run up the stairs, there's a
Yes.
monster gonna grab you. Well, you get that fear. That's the fear I had multiplied times 1,000. So I'd start sliding back down and hear, oh my God, it's going to get me. It's going to get me. And you'd look behind. And we started, as we were
Mm-hmm.
getting way up, we heard those pack of dogs again. That put
Real
another.
quick, Matt. Real quick. Can you? I'm not gonna stop you. I want you to continue your encounter, and I'm gonna add in a fresh show. He's not. He's gonna wait too, and we're gonna. I want you to continue this, but Michael Anthony, I'm gonna add him in real quick. But I want you to continue your encounter, and then after you're finished, I'll take questions from them because they got a bunch of questions. But continue. I'm adding him on now, but continue what you're telling everybody right now.
Yeah. So what occurred
You
next?
keep going.
How you doing? Well,
Hey, brother, how are you?
good. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
we are halfway up this hill, finally starting to make our way, and we start hearing that pack of wild dogs. And what that signaled to us was, oh my God, that it's back, it's that's why they're here. The dogs are back there. That must mean it's back. We heard them from a distance. We never saw them again. They didn't come close to us. We just heard it from a distance. And that again was another thing that just was that extra ounce of fear that we got thrown at us that night. Thankfully, we made it up the hill, exhausted. We made it across the highway to my friend's house. I'll always remember the first thing I did was, and my legs were shaking. We were all exhausted, shaking. I went to my buddy's hose next to his house. I always remember this. I was so thirsty. I just remember grabbing his hose and I just drank and drank and drank and kept drinking. I felt like forever. I got sick. I
Mm-hmm.
just drank, sprayed my face, and we all took turns with the hose. And we just sat on the porch, and nobody was there. It was just us. And we just sat there and we were shaking, and no one spoke for I would say at least an hour. And we were horrified. My one friend who had gone through, I believe, the worst of all of us, he was catatonic. He didn't speak for 2 days after that happened. Um, it was the most horrifying experience of my life. Something that I will take to my grave. Something that I will never forget as long as I live. There were four of us, so two of them are no longer here. God rest their soul. But we were able to, after this event, so many times go over it, and no, not one time, not one of us ever had a different story of what we saw, of what it was to us, of what it looked like, and
Mm-hmm.
what it was. And we told our families. When we did families, there was never a time that each of us went to each of our house. We had made a pact with each other that when we tell each other's parents, all four of us would be together so that we could back each other up. Because once it's just one of you, you're going to get all, shut up. What are you talking about? You don't know what you're a 14-year-old kid. You don't know what you're talking. It wasn't like 5 or 6-year-olds. You had 14-year-old teenage boys that knew what was up. We saw a lot of things at the time, and we knew what was going on. And out of all 4 of our groups of parents, none of them really believed us. My dad thought that we saw just a big, not grizzly bear, I'm sorry, a black bear, because we get black bears in Ohio. Not in the area where I lived, because I grew up in the city, but they're outside of the city. We have suburbs. We have a big park. It's like a state park called Mill Creek Park. It's real big. You could get occasional bear in there. I'd heard stories of that, not many. You get, of course, deer and stuff like that. There's it's called the Mahoning River, a big a river that would go through all of the towns and cities nearby Youngstown and through Creek Park, that would also carry down to tributaries and stuff, and actually went past the steel mill and the steel mill of the Mahoning River. So, and it was full of fish and stuff like that. So I believe this thing had made its way from, like, obviously the woodier parts of Ohio into the Mill Creek area, followed the river down to this area, and just happened to be down there when we were down there. Now, who knows how long it had been down there? I don't know, but that Mahoning River and Mill Creek Park played a big part in it. My one friend's dad, I'm not going to say exactly what he did. He's no longer here to say if it would be okay for me to say what his dad did. And all I'm going to say is that his dad held a very high position in the city. That's all I'm going to. Positions that are very high in a city. He was very high up, and we told him what happened, and his reaction was not like any of the other parents. His reaction, first and foremost, was, "What the hell are you doing down there in the first place? You guys don't realize there's people down there that kill people. There's people down there, like, we had a lot of mafioso in Youngstown. You could look up on the internet. The mafia in Youngstown, Ohio, was real big a long time. They would take people down there and kill people and get rid of bodies down there." He said, all the gang stuff going on, they would put bodies down there, because you don't know who or what you're going to run into. And he brought up the wild dogs, because, like I said, they had killed a couple homeless people down there. And he was just furious. But that stood out with us the most, was his unspoken words, the way he reacted when we told him what we saw and what came after us, is if he immediately knew what we were talking about. He knew what it was, and that he had heard about it before, and that it was something he had knowledge of. And he said, "I believe you're saying, but I'm just going to say this: don't ever take your asses back down again, because you'll be in deep doo-doo if you do." Threatened us in many ways, and was fearful. But he didn't say, "Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about," but just the way he answered. And he said, "I believe that you saw what you saw," but he gave us little cues that he had heard about it, that he knew about it, and that he dealt with it in some form or fashion with police, all of that situation before. So his unspoken words, again, spoke volumes to us. And we had never gone down there again until we were much, much older. We were shook when we went down there. We were nervous, but nothing happened. We didn't see anything. Even more dilapidated and grown over. Hear any dogs or anything? It was more just, it's hot and let's get the hell out of here. There's not down here. So that was my experience.
Real quick, Mac. Michael, did you have anything that you wanted to jump in? You've been listening in on the show. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like
Chat
to
right
ask a
now. You
couple
can
of
put them in
questions
all
and thank you. I want to thank you, B.
caps. If it, any, okay. Hold on, just
Um,
Michael. Hold on, just a second. Let me just tell them this real quick, and then I'm gonna let you get at it. Y'all in the chat, get y'all's questions ready now, and all caps. Your post those questions again if y'all are still out there listening right now. Post those questions so that are easily noticeable for me. But I'm gonna let Michael go ahead and have the floor. Michael, go ahead.
hey, thank you so much, B. I really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Thanks for supporting BMOS. Friend, your story is so intriguing. Uh, you're one of the few who can actually come forward and have such a lengthy time of eye contact. So I have a couple questions on the physicality of what you encountered. One is the feet. Were you ever able to get a clear focus point of the feet?
Like I had said, when I noticed the legs were more dog-like. Its
Right.
feet, along with it, were just a very, very long, extended kind of like timber wolves have that very lanky kind of long back leg. It was like that on again like the size of a polar bear kind of level. So its feet were not human like; they were also dog like, and but very large and long.
Okay. Thank you for answering. All right. Something else, because as I said, you had a lengthy experience. So smells when it was close to you. Did you pick up any type of odors at all?
No, I don't recall anything. Be it
Okay.
because of the fire that we had going. But I hear, of course, all of the
Mm-hmm.
stories of what occurred with us. Of course, over the years, I have become entrenched in cryptids and dogmen and Bigfoot because of this happening, and all the
Right.
stories of the smell. And I did not get any sense of that. I never once noticed any sense.
Okay. So in other words, when the drooling was occurring, nothing there. Also, when there was a point in time it urinated
Yes.
and no smell there. So all that off the table. Okay, that's fine. How about the ears? The profile of the ears, were they high or were they short?
No, they were actually long. They reminded me
Elongated.
more of like a German Shepherd, how a German Shepherds will come up and they'll kind of cut
Okay.
themselves and move simultaneously themselves. You could tell where it was listening to. Its ears would kind of almost point to that area, but they
Follow
were
you.
high off of its head. They were not short.
Okay. So yeah, his ears, the observance of them, they were following you as you would expect um, a dog-like, wolf-like creature, I guess, to do. Me personally, I've never been up and close to one. So your information is like data, significant data. Um, so we know they sweat through the mouth. This would probably be, without question, because a lot of people say that these are interdimensional, but everything and all your perceptions, you're describing flesh and blood, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that there is something supernatural about these creatures. The more the years of research I've done, but nothing that occurred that night gave us any sense of anything supernatural other than the just the size, the being able to stand up on two legs, being what it was. Going back, I had mentioned to Bettina, I would mention about how tall I thought this thing was because
Mm-hmm.
when I stood up inside of the building, there were these pillars. There were four giant concrete pillars that would be at each end of the room as well. And when it stood up, its head almost touched the top of the ceiling to the next floor above it. And I would say I would guesstimate looking back, and I've seen it when I was older, that the ceiling had to be at least 14 feet high. So if this thing was maybe, I'd say 10, 9, 10 feet. I mean, it was gigantic up on two legs. Definitely not as high as it could go, but once it stood up, there wasn't a lot of room between its head and the ceiling above it. So I would say for sure 9, possibly 10 feet tall.
I could understand the fear in that moment, without a doubt. All right, I want to direct in a different direction right now. May I be? Can I still have a few more minutes, B? All right.
Yeah.
So my next
Are you
question
also
would be,
good, Matt? Do you have a cutoff?
Yeah. No. Go right ahead.
Hold on, Michael. Real quick, 'cause I'm a. Do you have a cutoff time? And if you don't have a cutoff time, I'm gonna let Michael. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on.
Yes, Michael, go ahead, floor, and he's going to go ahead and talk to you real quick, Matt, and basically I'm gonna take a quick break while he's doing that. When I come back, I'm gonna take y'all's questions. Michael, if you can, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the questions are on there. I'm gonna take a quick 5-minute break. But remember this question before I take this break. Were you ever able to see double rows of canine teeth? What were its teeth like as well? So that's that question, and I will be right back momentarily.
I did not notice double rows. I noticed the teeth themselves, especially like I had said, when we saw all of that saliva pouring out of its mouth, when it looked at us after it smelled the air and it growled at us, is when its mouth had separated, the lips and everything came up. Gigantic canines just hanging down, all of the teeth just shining from the light of the fire, just massive, just grill of teeth that were made for one thing, and that was just destroying whatever it chose to bite, eat, tear at, kill. This thing, in my opinion, was made for one thing again, is to be the apex predator. It was made to do what it was made for, and I'm glad that I was not a firsthand victim.
Yeah, no one would want to be part of that dinner menu item for sure. All right, so like I was going to bring the canines up. I'm going to put it to the question enter it with a different dialogue. So I know you were seeing things, no double rows, but the fangs protrude down below the shelf of the lower jaw.
So when you mean when the mouth was closed,
Closed, yes.
Yeah, you could see the tips of its canines coming out from its under its lips for sure. So they were long.
Okay, because I've heard it both ways, and I'm thinking in my head, I have a lot of years where I've talked to people, researched, read. I never had an encounter, and from the signs of yours, I probably wouldn't want to. But if it ever happened, it happened. Not
Right.
much you can do about it. But thank you for answering that question. Okay, so when you saw this, did you pick up or perceive anywhere out in the distance that there were others around with it, or it was totally solo?
The impression I got, and again, all the research and data that I've done to date, you hear the stories of them traveling in packs and how horrifying that is to think of. If there were more there, we got no sense of it being other than by itself that night.
Crazy. All right, I got something that's a little bit even more different, though. We're going to go off the narrative of what the story's about, but we're going to stay in tune with it. Are there any military installations close by to where this occurred?
There is an Air Force base, Ravenna Air Force Base. There is also the Vienna Air Force Base, which is only, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes at the most from this downtown area in Youngstown. So Vienna Air Force Base, 25 minutes at the most, is darn close to where this is.
Okay, awesome. All right, so in telling your story, somebody said to you they believed what you were telling them, and they gave you fair warning of it being a bad area. due to circumstances of things that you described, mafia activities, things like that. But was there any hints in a very direct mannerism from this person, who I'm not asking, I would never ask you to name, saying a little bit more than having an awareness to this, but having a true fact of awareness of the existence of this creature in that area?
Yeah, he like I said, he given us, and we talked about it later, and my buddy, who is his son, agreed with us, and he had said he'd asked him times before and he wouldn't give him a straight answer, but he did give us the idea and gave my friend at later dates the idea that he was aware of this thing, that he was had heard stories of it, and that the police department were aware of its presence down there.
Wow. So there are possibly police reports in the Youngstown Mills Creek area.
Looks like we lost him there for a second. Bettina, we're all kind of just hanging here. Sorry, everybody. We lost him for a second. Bettina, if you can hear me, we lost, I believe you said his name was Mike. He went out on us there for a minute, so we're all kind of just hanging here. Everybody hold on if you have any questions. I hope you're not leaving us. I'm gonna text Bettina real quick, guys. Okay, I just texted her. Hopefully she'll be back in a second. I apologize, everybody. I don't know what to do.
I'm back, Matt.
Hey.
I'm gonna take some questions from the chat. I see that he got kicked off.
Yeah.
But real quick, I'm gonna take some questions from the chat. I see that he's trying to get back in right now, but I'm gonna take some questions from the live chat real quick. Get my puppy secure again. Wait, stop. They got a lot of questions for you, and then after I take these questions from the chat, then we'll just go from there. But they have a lot of questions. I put her back in her crate. Sorry about that, y'all. But I will add him back in here shortly. So somebody asked, have the entities ever followed you home being tagged or marked? Have you been marked by these things? Did you see any dogmen again after that initial sighting that you had?
No, I have never seen another one, but I will say that ever since I have noticed things when I would be out in the woods, and when I've gone on like fishing trips and things like that, we'd stayed in cabins overnight. I have noticed some very strange things, and again, looking at all of the out now, and the research that's being done about cryptids, and the little hints of things being out there, and the little hints that they give you when something's out there. I definitely have noticed stuff through the years that could possibly be something, in that realm. I've always kind of been myself a little sensitive to house I grew up in. I can't say 100%, but we all kind of thought that it was haunted, and there were some strange things that went on there growing up, and I felt sensitive to that, and I noticed it from a young age. So I don't know if that draws things to you from that realm. I do believe that this thing is supernatural. Looking at all of the things that I've done research about on the Dogmen, and seeing stuff like the Beast of Bray Road, and some of the things that I've seen about that and the research
Mm-hmm.
done. I believe that, they are supernatural, and that they have capabilities of cloaking and doing things like that.
All right. Richard Cox said, have people suffered or died from unknown animal attacks in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of things that have occurred over the years in the Youngstown Warren. Warren is another city right now. The Youngstown. Um, I can think of times hearing things on the news through the years about, somebody being found dead, unknown animal, people saying believed to be attacked by, dog or something. So yes, I do recall hearing little ones, not a lot.
All right. Primal Cross said, Matt, did you or your friends have vivid dreams of the creature afterwards?
I'm going to say, knowing what I know now these days about PTSD, we all absolutely positively suffered from PTSD in that event. I've had nightmares to this day, uh, having dreams about that creature. I've seen it many times in my dreams. I've had it coming after me, it being right on top of me, even attacking me at some points in dreams. Obviously, waking up at that moment, knowing that I'm safe. But yeah, I have had dreams about it my whole life, and they have two, aside from the two that are no longer here. But we all agree that we've had things that have stuck with us ever since that occurred.
Sugay said, Matt, can you tell if the creature was male or female?
I believe it was 100% male. I did not notice genitals on the animal, but just from its when it stood up and showed its upper body, it had pecs. It had a man's chest, so it was a man. Everything screamed man.
I know one of Michael's questions before I added him on was, did you see somebody else in the chat had also asked, what did its feet look like? Did it have the hawk style feet and legs of like a dog, like if it was standing on its hind legs?
Yeah, Michael had asked that earlier. It had the feet of like a big wolf. Again, going back to that just massive extended kind of lankiness of a polar bear. It just taking a wolf's legs and adding that size to it. That's exactly what its feet were like too.
Okay, Michael, did you want to jump back in there real quick before I take any more
Yeah.
questions
You
from the
know,
chat? It looks like
yeah, I mean,
okay.
I'll
Go ahead.
hang out with you. Thank you for having me. One of the things, because of everything that you say, and how this is stuck in your mind and probably in the mind of the people that you were with that evening, that you guys ever, and I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm not. It may be a helpful solution for you though, to justify more if you think you could do it. And again, this isn't a pressure point. I sometimes use them as pressure points for what I do, but this is not at all. I believe what you had encountered happened. It's in your voice. It's in your testimony of facts. But have you ever thought about, because I had an incident, not like this, but have you ever thought about hypnotic regression to try to, isolate the things that maybe you've forgotten? Or because, again, as you said, in the roar, you could feel it in your chest. And that's in ways we understand some of these methods are related to infrasound, if not infrasound. But you suffered weakness. You were shaking. I'll compare it to a woman saying, I had the best orgasm of my life. I couldn't stop shaking. And I'm not trying to be a clown here. I'm trying to give a description so somebody else understands the intensity and the enormity of the fear and what you guys were going through. So has that ever come into your mind to regress and maybe, look into it further to help yourself?
But it's funny you bring that up. And just recently, I had actually thought about, I've had gone in the past and had not for that specific event done, but I've tried to go through it and it never worked for me. But just recently, I did think about, man, I wonder if there was anything else that I missed as much as I can remember, because this stuff is just as fresh now as it was then. It was burned and etched into my brain. I did think about, maybe there's some other little things here and there that I don't remember that I would like to be able to remember. So yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I thought of that recently.
Well, like for me, myself, and what mine was about, it was about a light above me and communicating with me. As I played with the light, I was having an intelligent type of, not a fear of a 10-foot hairy dog-like, wolf-like dogman creature. Mine was of the out of ordinary, we'll say. But many people said to me, because the way I guess I talk also, and I'm trying to compare something that I can't compare to what you experienced, but it raised the hairs up on the back of my neck. And I even asked myself in a moment, be careful what you wish for. What the hell did you just get yourself into? And we find ourselves in these places and positions, and maybe we really don't know the full entirety of the encounter. Again, animals, we in the crypto, era of the community, we hear about the infrasons and the vertigo and the weaknesses and things like that. And that's why I bring those questions up, because in those short moments, who's to know what occurs? Could there have been orbs of light over you and you didn't even know it? There's things that might come out and give you even a little bit more relevance. And again, they may not. But, as I see it, and as I see how you're talking, whatever it takes to help. And I think one of the biggest thing is the fact that you're coming out, you're helping people with data, you're making our efforts in the community so much better. And I thank you for your story. I thank you for not minding me coming in to ask a few questions. And I want to say this with clarity. I'm an expert at nothing. I research everything. I've done pretty well for myself, and I support the community to the stars and back. I really do. And guys like you out there, and ladies, I think you gave a very descriptive detail of what had happened. I thank you for that. I guess we can just kind of like talk a little bit here. There seems to be a question. Let me see if I can get this. I heard a story like this on Sasquatch Chronicles a few weeks ago.
That was me.
That was you. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
He was also Dogman encounters with Vic Condiff also.
And
okay.
I just wanted to add that just in case anybody else is wondering.
And Cryptic Creatures with Todd and Brian as well.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Russell Easterbrooks?
Yes.
Russell does a lot of good writing, and he looks for to help a lot of people, so their voices are heard. I'm just going to make a suggestion. If you know him, does he know about your story?
I don't know him. I'd be willing to talk to him though.
Okay, I can arrange that for you.
Okay.
I can give a shout out for it. Go ahead.
I think that'd be great. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think he would love it. I'd love it. I mean, the intensity of what you have described here is probably one of the most fascinating stories, encounters that I've come across in the past 5-6 years. I've heard some things, don't get me wrong, on many different topics within the cryptozoology and whatnot. But again, pretty fascinating, brother. And I can only hope when you close your eyes at night that you have peaceful rest. And I mean that because a lot of people don't understand how these things and encounters can affect one's own mind and peace at mind, you know. And I'm sure, as you say, it's as vivid in your memory as if it happened in a way yesterday. Mine's the same way. It's a burnt element. All I remember is that light. And everybody's telling me, hey, you know, you want to deep dive this more. There's probably things that you know, and maybe I don't. And I have said in the past, I would be willing to do it. I would never back out of it. I just don't know if I made any proper, connections with somebody that I would trust my mind to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would love to hear your story someday too.
Oh, it's very simple. Basically, I'll share it right now because it's been a long time since I've been on with B. We're good friends. But I have a wood carving shop up in Karnes City, which is like right outside of Butler County, Pennsylvania. And I've had a couple encounters, but this is the one that stands out to me as where I had contact. But I don't know what type of contact it was. I was sitting in front of my fire pit and I'm playing with a deer spotting light. And that's what I was doing. I was spotting into the field across in the pasture. And I always do it. It's always sitting next to me. And I'm playing with the light. And I decide to look up because I'm an observer, because things have happened to me. I've seen things in the skies. I have a show that I do. It's called What's in the Skies. That was why I do What's in the Skies. But I'm playing with the light into the sky now. I'm thinking I'm looking at a satellite, and I'm not sure. It's not moving, drastically fast. It's moderately moving. It could be a satellite. I'm not up there. I can't identify it. I don't know what it is. But I start using my light. It has a 3-position, like on, off, high, medium, low. A general Black & Decker light. And I'm flashing it into the sky, and I'm playing around. And then just as I'm getting ready to put it down, not even thinking about anything, nothing. I know, I just have a perception of something, like, it wasn't peripheral vision. It was nothing about that. It was about us as a human being that we sense, that when that next sense kicks in, that people don't realize they have, but they do. They're intuitive, they're sensitive. And I was in that moment. And something said to me, look up. I wasn't guided, but maybe it was mind sound and I don't even know. That's points of why regression might be good for me. I looked up and lo and behold, and I have a huge driveway. I have a pretty good garage. And there was a round globe-like light. It looked like it had crackle glass in it. Like it wasn't clear, like perfect. It looked like a piece of vintage glass. There is something called crackle glass out there.
Yeah.
And it lit up, and it was lit up. And I was like, oh, wow. And then it was gone. And I'm like, wow. You're like, what's this? So I do it again. Don't even ask me why I did it, because I don't know, but I did. It lights up.
Oh, wow.
It goes back out. Never hurt my eyes,
Wow.
as far as brightness. So I do it, I think, the third time, and it responds back like in a low, but not a vibrational hum, but something generating. And then it went from like how you have a switch on the wall to turn on your light, and you can adjust the power of the intensity. So
Yeah.
it was like let's say it was like at a third of intensity. It went up to 100, but it wasn't 100. It was always that point of brightness that I always seen. And it did it again. In my head, I start thinking, oh my God. And as I'm talking to you about this, I feel it on my skin, honestly. And I said to myself, what the hell did you just get yourself into? It kind of made me paranoid. And no, I wasn't doing anything at the moment. I was clear-minded. I know my faculties were all in place. And I started to yell. I'm not going to lie to you. I started to yell. I was like, hey, somebody get out here, because they weren't far from me, but it was like nobody heard me.
That's awesome.
And that was pretty much the experience. And then I had, whenever I got my head together, I noticed, and when it was gone, I think in a way, it knew it kind of like made me uncomfortable, and it stopped. The next time I looked up, I started seeing stars again, which in my head said to me, oh my God, wow. So the size of this was enormous. And I'm talking like the one light, and that was all it showed me was one light. Maybe it was the center of a craft. I don't know. Is it our military? Is it somebody else? Who knows? It's something we'll always have more questions and answers to until, the suppression of silence is allowed to be shared. But it was huge. I would venture to say, like round like a basketball in circumference, 50 feet, 60 feet round.
Wow.
That's what I observed. And here's the weirdest part. It didn't really illuminate the surface of the ground around me. It just illuminated enough.
Oops, hold on. Is he still on there?
Yeah, I wanted to answer Primal Cry. I saw her question.
Backstage, it looks like.
She said a matter of the underground tunnel, major waterways near that area. Yes, Primal Cry. As I had said earlier in the story, there's it's called the Mahoning River that goes right through downtown area of Youngstown, right by the steel mills that they utilize that waterway for things. And there are also tunnels and things like that, cave systems in the Mill Creek Park, tunnel that they had dug for whatever they were digging for back in the earlier parts of the city. So yes, they do have each of those down in that. Al Santiago.
Questions, because I know a lot of the times, yeah, Al Sanariga, he said, how often did you guys hang out down there? A week, and was that the only time you seen or heard it there?
We hung out there, oh my God, years, and that was the only time that it ever happened. After that happened, we did not go back down there until we were adults, I'd say, in our maybe 20, 24 years old was the next time we'd gone down. So it took care of that being our hangout spot.
Do you think that the abandoned building could have been being used by the Dogman at night?
It's possible. There was also, and going back into what Primal Cry had asked about there being tunnels underneath specifically the building that we made our home base there. There was a tunnel that if we went down one time, we had to tie a rope off to climb down, and it was obviously used for the steel for whatever reason, I don't know what, but it was a man-made tunnel below this building that went miles in different directions. So yeah, this thing very well could have been using this building and was why it was outside of the building when these dogs came to attack it. That
And I was going to ask, and then I'll get back to Michael and see if he had any questions about this. But I wanted to know, like, based on the fact that you was just trying to show territory as far as those dogs was concerned. Like originally, you saw the dogs running towards that area. I guess they were running towards it. They knew it was over there, but the fact that it didn't kill them, do you think it's because they were running away, or do you think that was by choice? It was just showing its dominance in that situation.
I got the sense it was more of a dominance thing because of the urinating after it attacked them. Let me just say this: it could have easily shredded these dogs to pulp. It was so massive, and it did hurt some of them. Like I said, some of them had some really obvious injuries, were bleeding, limping, hurt. it could have killed one of them like nothing, like they were squirrels. It would not have had an issue. So I do believe that that final kind of dominant show of force when it urinated was it saying, I could have killed you tonight. This is my place and this is my territory. So yes. No, I've
Catherine
not.
Gay said, "Have you had anyone do a drawing of it?" I know. Can you just
I have.
explain? I know you told the Dogman on Van Helsing.
Yes, yeah. The best. I would love to have someone to do a drawing for me someday who really knows what they're doing, kind of like a sketch artist, a police sketch artist. But the best description I can give of what I saw that day to date, with all of the media I've watched and all of the pictures I've seen, and Matina used some really nice pictures that showed signs of it. Best one is if you watch Van Helsing
Absolutely.
with Jackman is basically exactly what I saw that, except its legs were more dog-like than in the movie. I believe they were more human-like. If I remember right, I could be wrong, but yeah, that Van Helsing. I sent you that real quick little MPEG video when it looks at the camera or at Dracula during that scene is exactly the way it looked at us when it looked up at us in the building. So that is uh, the best idea I can give anyone. If you want to know what I saw that night, watch Van Helsing and you'll get a good idea from that right there.
He's glitching. I don't know if it's me or Mike. I still have people. Were there any picture went down on all four,
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
like the knees cracking or anything like that, bones cracking?
You know what? It's
They were
ironic.
asking, were there any popping sounds? Can you see
Yeah,
that on the screen?
it's funny that they bring
Were there
it
any
up.
popping sounds when the creature went down on all fours or when it stood up?
Yeah, Matthew, it's funny you bring that up because I saw there's a show on Discovery Plus. It's about like ghosts in the woods or something in the woods, and there was I saw this one episode of where this older gentleman and a wife were traveling and trying to find a camping spot. They hit something, and basically, long story short, he got surrounded by dogmen in a swamp kind of area. And he said, when this thing stood up from all fours, it made popping noises and it did something when it stood up that it didn't look like it was comfortable. No, that did not happen with my encounter. This thing did it like it did it every day, like it was born to do it or made to do it. It did it smoothly, fluidly, and with no noise. It did it like I'm happy on 4 or I'm happy on 2.
Michael, did you have any questions before I go on to
That
any more
was one of
questions in
the
the chat or
questions.
anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, if I could, just a couple quickies, because I want your audience to be able to get their time in. Or you kind of just answered the question where when I got booted off, with the bad Wi-Fi signal or whatever happened. So, in your description, you said it moved fluidly. It could do it either way. So it walked basically just as well as a man.
Yes, the way it stood and the way it took steps. It didn't, especially the most movement it did for my experience was on all fours, but it did step and take a few steps here and move forward and about when it came up on 2 legs. It walked, I mean, just as easily as a man. It just, like I said, it looked as comfortable on 2 legs as on 4. It had no issue either way, and it was meant to be either way. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I think somebody wants to know how you feel about going now deep into the woods.
I definitely don't do it by myself. like I said, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 250. I played college ball. I was even bigger, and I didn't go in the woods by myself anymore, even at my biggest. So no, I don't do it by myself. I will do it with people. I am extremely interested in the cryptid world. Obviously, with my experience, it has just made me, knowing that there's this other world out there, and there's these things out there that people think do not exist, that they think are just in the movies and books.
Right.
You're wrong, people, that they really exist. I saw it firsthand. And, I would love to see something else. I'd love to have another experience, not like that night. That was a bad one, but I'd like to see some other things someday. I would, as long as it's not I feel like I'm about to meet my maker experience.
Right, right. I believe me, I would understand that. I think anybody could relate to that. All right, you mentioned the heavy dripping of the saliva, and as we know, when we learned about canines and so forth, domestic dogs, you know, they can sweat profusely through their mouth. And I'm just wondering when the dogs went down, because I missed certain parts of the segment, and I apologize for that, but I'll rewatch the whole entirety sometime tomorrow or the next day. Do you think that changed the element of the situation, and that could be part of, well, I mean, it's hard to really say, but that played a part to what you were witnessing about the heavy drooling and everything that it did. But we do know if a dog becomes nervous, they can smell, they can sweat profusely through their mouth as well. Do you think there was any type of connection to that point of it?
The fight that ensued, when we noticed the dogs go over the mound and they started attacking something, that all took place within, I would say, about a 10-12 second period. And it had no issue with those other dogs. So I didn't get the sense that because it wasn't breathing hard or anything when we saw
Right.
it at the top of the mound for the first time. I think I really believe that the salivation was coming from an idea of it's about to chow down. I just think it was in predator mode and
Right.
about to do something to these four.
All right, I have one final question, and because I hear an indifference on the eyes, pertaining to the eyes, and that would be, were they more round and large, or more of an oval,
Uh,
like almost like alien shape when you think of the alien gray
right.
type of eye?
Almond kind of shape. Yeah,
Okay,
they weren't as high like her, in kind of like this way, and more of a almond. Yeah, definitely not round like her.
okay. I think we're having another Wi-Fi issue. I'm getting like an air sign.
Yeah, I hear it too.
Yeah, maybe
I
we're
don't
on the
know
wrong
what.
topic.
Well, it could possibly be that. I'm also having Wi-Fi issues here right now. It's storming real bad outside here.
Oh,
Oh,
it
that could be what
stopped.
it
It's
is.
storm.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
stopped.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah,
we know that they're
but
oval.
when I have certain guests coming on the. Uh-huh. Well, no, let me say this real quick, Michael. I was gonna say, just like I had the show last night, and I had when I had my guest on last night, Debbie Jones of Sisters of the Moon. Like, I've shared that in several groups, like I always do on the different shows. And during that, like while I was live sharing that, Facebook basically restricted me from sharing in groups because they called it spam, encrypted groups. So it's like, when I had Scott Carpenter on the show, I got knocked out of my live for over 20 minutes. Had what was it? I had him on the show. It basically knocked me out. It knocked off the co-host who I said, I'm going to add you in case I keep getting knocked like this. Then not only that, it was removing people from the live chat when I had Lance Hightower Monsters 911 Cryptic Investigations. It did the same thing. So there's certain shows, and it actually said I didn't have Wi-Fi when I have a full Wi-Fi signal. There's certain things they don't want you to talk about. There's certain things or information that they want to censor because when you're going live or you're sharing stuff in groups and stuff stuff like that. There's no reason why you would call that spam in a cryptic group, which basically says to me, you don't want this information out there. You want to be able to control the information and what's being told.
Right.
Dr.
That
Melba
might have
Ketchum, for
to.
instance, she wasn't sharing her encounters on several different shows until here recently. She just did one on Spaced Out Radio, and I think she, not Spaced Out Radio, she hadn't done that one yet, but she did one with, what was it? The guy from, what is his name right now? I can't think. Duke Sullivan show. We're a Bigfoot Radio. She's in part 1 on there. She's part 2, but she's talking about the Sasquatch Genome Project, the DNA research and evidence. They don't want that stuff out there.
Oh.
So certain things that you're allowed to talk about and that you're not allowed to talk about. You can get your YouTube channel. Michael well knows this. He's had his YouTube channel shut down before his Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And there's certain things that you're just not allowed to talk about.
Yeah, when you get below level 7 criteria, they're going to come at you, because below level 7 is part of the deep military industrial complex, where harvesting of genetics to blend them human with animal. And that's why I don't want to go off. I don't want to get nobody in trouble. But when you even hear a New World somebody talk about that it's okay to marry or to do things with a 4-legged creature, I mean, the world's becoming pretty bizarre. But no, it's a factual truth. And here's something else that's really coming out now in the paranormal world, from the investigators who make it to television. They cannot actually show a majority of their findings. They're not allowed to promote them or show them on television. Just saying.
Yeah, it was funny you guys, brought that up real quick, and he started going out there for a minute too. It got like he was all fuzzy and you couldn't hear him. So it's kind of weird, wondering if they're out there doing that. I believe that.
Technology is dangerous in the wrong people's hands, and we're seeing the faculties of the truth of that on how it works. And it works in a much bigger narrative too. But again, this is non-political. I don't want to go there, but I think it's just precise to say that we need to mention little tidbits here and there. I apologize for doing that, but it is factually true. I mean, you think you're watching all the information on the show, and they're being suppressed to only showing you tidbits of what they actually may have encountered. And I'm trying to use language that doesn't nail it directly, but gives everybody the best component. That's why I'm so happy to be where I am now, chasing prophecy on 107.7, 105.3, and Roku and iHeart, and hitting all the national networks. And I can talk and say anything I want. I am not bothered there. I mean, in ways I might be, but that would also have to go with under when we talk about things like this or anything else. It would pertain more to, you got to be careful still on the big P word, on how we address what the leaders of, the U.S. is doing. So, but for the most part, I mean, we had an amazing 871,000 views last Tuesday. So I'm happy with it, because they're doing me a favor. They get like you did, B, when we talk, and I told you and I motivated you and we had great talks together. There was a different format that we needed to do. And I'll bring you guys in as often as I can to let your voices be heard differently and to actually help you guys grow. That's who I am. That's what I want to do. I want to promote people. I'm the gatekeeper to the people. It doesn't matter what platform I'm on, what I'm talking about. It's what is necessary in these times. And, I want everybody to have success. There's nothing wrong with that.
I love it. I saw Sugi.
Absolutely. We got to all pull together.
I want to mention Sugi had a question if I had ever been to Salt Fork down in the Columbus area. I have not. I really want to go there. I've heard about all of the Sasquatch type things that go on down there. It is close to the Youngstown area, so I would love to go down there sometime and do some tracking out there at night. I hope to have the experience. I heard that's the place to go.
Well, I know everybody's up in, what do they call it, South Fork right now at the
They
campground?
said you should go to the second Dogman conference.
Yeah, heard about that. And I'd like to go to the one you told me about.
Hocking Hills campground or something like that.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Bigfoot's down there right now. They're doing
y'all.
Observations and so forth.
Bettina, you had mentioned the one that's going to be in Texas or something. You had mentioned.
Yeah, that's the paranormal round. That, and I hope y'all can still hear. We're gonna get ready to shut it down, but yes, that is September the 2nd and 3rd in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, I would like to go.
The White Settlement Convention Center or something like that. But it's definitely something that y'all definitely want to see. It's a great opportunity to get involved with other cryptid researchers, eyewitnesses, investigators, and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely an event that I actually enjoyed. I'll be a speaker there this year. I was one there last year. I was a panelist, but I really enjoyed the experience. It was awesome. Josh is a great guy. He and Nelly he has his own show, Paranormal Roundtable. But then, just meeting him in person, it's a great experience. Michael, I encourage you to go too if you're out that way. It's definitely something that you will not be disappointed that you went. It's going to be a great lineup this year. I know Ron Moorhead is going to be there. I'll just read that off real quick, and then we're going to get off of this live, y'all, because I said I wasn't going to go this long tonight, but I really enjoyed the guests, and I enjoyed having Michael Anthony on here with us as well. But I wanted to just give y'all Michael, and we got to get together, Michael, because we still got some stuff that we got to do together as far as this is concerned, because I'm still supposed to come on your show, and I'm still supposed to have you on my show as well.
Anytime.
So we've been trying. So Michael, thank you for joining us tonight.
We'll do it. I promise.
Well,
I'm gonna read this off to y'all real quick, just on the lineup if y'all are interested in who might be the speakers there. But Ken Gerhardt, Barton Nunley, David Weatherly, that's the Black Eyed Kids guy. He wrote the books on that. Ron Moorhead, Ann Celine, me, Bettina Moss, D.A. Roberts, Adam Davies, Christopher Garantano, Lyle Blackburn, Nick Redfern, Ron Murphy, Kenny Irish, Nick Valenti, Sabila Irwin, and Jessica Jones. And that is September the 2nd and the 3rd. That's the Saturday and Sunday.
That's going to be great.
So, I'm excited about it. So I hope to see y'all there. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all for showing up tonight. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Make sure y'all share these shows out. But like Michael has his own podcast too. And when it comes to when we're getting closer to the truth and telling things that they don't want out there, we get censored all the time. So just make sure that y'all help us out in our platforms and help us to share and get this information out there. Everybody who's watching the video that didn't like it, if you still here and you enjoyed the show, hit the like after the fact and leave us a comment. With that being said, everybody, y'all have a good night. And to you guys, y'all stick around for a second. We're going to end this live. Thank y'all. Have a good night. And I'll see y'all on the next show.